Okay, so you found another interesting one, huh? This one's about a saltwater ritual. Yeah, and it's supposed to give you like life-changing results. I mean,
Yeah.
come on,
A
life-changing.
bold claim, is it?
That's what I thought. So anyway, the video you sent me, it's called November 21st Saltwater Ritual. Write your name in water today and prepare for life-changing results. Catchy, right?
Yeah, definitely grabs your attention.
And it's from this YouTube channel called The Journey of Wisdom. It looks like they pull a lot from Buddhist and spiritual traditions, like a lot of this new agey stuff.
Yeah, a pretty common blend these days.
Right. So basically you want to know if this ritual is actually worth trying, like what are the supposed benefits and how does it all tie back to Buddhist philosophy? Sound about right.
Yeah, you've summed it up perfectly.
Okay, cool. So let's dive in and see what we can figure out.
Sounds good to me.
So the video really pushes November 11th as the day to do this ritual. They even call it a portal day. Kind of makes you wonder, is the universe really paying extra attention on 11/11?
Yeah, I mean, the whole portal day thing is pretty big in numerology and New Age circles. It's supposed to be like this time of supercharged energy, a really powerful time for manifestation and stuff.
Okay, so not exactly a Buddhist holiday then?
Not specifically,
Okay.
but the idea of balance and symmetry, those are definitely important in Buddhist philosophy. And, 1111 visually, it's all about that like two pairs of ones mirrored. So there's an interesting connection there, even if it's not like a direct Buddhist teaching.
Oh, I see what you mean. So even if 11/11 isn't like a big deal in Buddhism specifically, the idea of balance still fits in. Gotcha. Okay, so let's talk about the actual ritual now. On the surface, it seems pretty simple.
Right?
You just need salt water, East paper.
Yeah, but they do have some pretty specific instructions.
Right, so they're not just saying throw it all together and hope for the best.
No, but definitely not. So you need a clear container, first of all. That's important. It's not just about mixing this stuff up. It's about, visually representing clarity and intention.
Makes you think about those fancy water bottles everyone's carrying around.
Right, like those crystal infused ones.
Exactly. So what else do they tell you to do?
Well, you're supposed to write your full name and like specific intentions on the paper.
Yeah.
And as you're writing, you're supposed to really visualize what you want, like the desired outcome.
Okay, so lots of focus on intention setting. That makes sense.
Yeah, and then after you write everything down, you submerge the paper in the salt water and you let it sit there undisturbed for 24 hours.
So definitely not just throwing things together and calling it a day.
Nope. Every
Right.
action is supposed to be deliberate, like you're putting your energy and intention into each step.
It's kind of like those mindful cooking shows where they make you focus on each ingredient.
Right. It's that whole idea of being present in the moment, just like in Buddhist meditation.
Okay, cool. So let's break this down a little further. We've got water, we've got salt, both pretty basic ingredients.
Yeah, but they do have a deeper meaning, especially in this context.
Right. And the video is really specific about using sea salt or coarse salt. Like they don't just say any old salt will do.
Yeah, okay. And there's a reason for that.
Yeah. So, spill the tea. What's the deal with the salt in the water? And how does this all tie back to Buddhist philosophy?
Okay, so water in lots of spiritual traditions represents purification and clarity.
Yeah.
Think about all those cleansing rituals, baptism, holy water, that kind of stuff. It's all about washing away negativity and making space for something new.
So kind of like a spiritual reset button.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And in Buddhism, water is often used in rituals to symbolize cleansing the mind and spirit.
Okay, that makes sense. What about salt then?
Salt is usually associated with protection and removing negativity. Like in tons of cultures, they use it to ward off evil spirits, create a barrier against bad vibes.
So it's like a spiritual shield.
Exactly.
Interesting. So they specifically call for sea salt or coarse salt.
Right.
Do you think that's because those types of salt are more natural, like unrefined?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And it would definitely fit in with Buddhist philosophy. Buddhism is all about purity and authenticity, stripping away the superficial to get to the real deal.
Right, like getting rid of all the distractions and just focusing on what truly matters.
Yeah, exactly. So using unrefined salt could be a way of tapping into a more primal natural energy.
Makes you think about all those Himalayan salt lamps people have.
Right. Exactly. Like they're supposed to have all these special properties because they're so natural.
Okay, so we've got the water for purification, clarity, the salt for protection, removing negativity, and then we add our written intentions to the mix. What do you think's going on there energetically? Is it just symbolic, or is there something more happening behind the scenes?
That's a great question. And it's something a lot of people debate.
Right.
Well, Buddhism talks about these things called mental poisons.
Like what? Toxic positivity.
Not exactly.
Yeah.
It's more like things like greed, hatred, delusion.
Oh,
Oh.
like those negative thought patterns that can really mess with your head?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They cloud your mind and block you from experiencing real peace.
So how does this ritual tie into that?
Well, you could see it as a symbolic act of purifying those mental poisons.
So by literally dissolving a piece of paper with our intentions written on it, we're symbolically dissolving those negative thought patterns and making space for positive change.
Yeah. It's a really compelling interpretation. That act of physically dissolving something in water, it can be a powerful visual metaphor. Like you're letting go of what's no longer serving you.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
And by combining that with the intention to purify and protect, you're creating this powerful energetic shift.
So it's like a two-pronged approach. You're getting rid of the bad stuff and then reinforcing the good stuff.
Exactly. And it's not just about the ritual itself,
Yeah.
It doesn't stop after those 24 hours.
Oh, really? So what happens after the salt water's done its thing?
Well, the video really emphasizes staying positive, keeping that good energy going.
Hmm.
It's about gratitude, too, like cultivating that sense of thankfulness.
So it's not just like setting an intention and then sitting back and waiting for the universe to
No,
deliver.
definitely not. It's more like you're planting a seed and then you have to tend to it.
Oh, I like that. So what are some ways to like nurture those seeds of intention?
Well, the video talks about keeping a gratitude journal and being mindful of your surroundings, like really paying attention to the people you're with, the things you're consuming, even the places you spend time in.
It's like you're creating this whole ecosystem for your intentions to grow in.
Exactly. And all of that ties back to Buddhist principles, too.
Oh, yeah. How so?
Well, keeping a gratitude journal helps you shift your focus, right?
Hmm,
You go from thinking about what you don't have to appreciating what you do have.
that makes sense.
And in Buddhism, that's a big part of mindfulness. It's about being present in the moment, accepting things as they are, and finding gratitude for what's there.
Okay, I can see how that connects. And what about being mindful of our environment? How does that fit in?
Well, think about it. If you're trying to manifest positive change, it helps to be surrounded by positivity.
Right? Like if you're constantly bombarded with negativity, it's got to be harder to stay positive yourself.
Exactly. So by being mindful of our environment, we're creating an external reality that supports our internal state.
So it's not just about what's going on inside our heads, but also about what's happening around us.
Exactly.
Okay, so the video is basically encouraging us to take responsibility for our own energy
Hmm?
and to make sure our inner and outer worlds are in sync.
Yeah, exactly. And that whole idea of aligning our actions with our intentions, that's a big part of the Buddhist Eightfold Path.
Right, like it's not enough to just think good thoughts. You have to actually act on them.
Exactly. And that's right action. It's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
Okay, that makes sense. But what about the practical side of things? Like, let's say someone tries this ritual and they don't see any immediate results. Does that mean it's not working?
Well, this is where patience comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And the video really emphasizes that. Change doesn't always happen overnight. It can be gradual, subtle.
So it's not always about those big dramatic moments.
Right. Sometimes it's about those small shifts in your thoughts, feelings, behaviors.
So maybe the change isn't as obvious as like getting a new job or finding a new partner.
Right. Maybe it's just a subtle shift in perspective or a newfound sense of peace.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. So it's about trusting the process and being open to the possibility that the results might show up in unexpected ways.
Exactly. And those inner shifts, they can be just as powerful, if not more so, than those big external changes.
Makes you think about that saying, the real voyage of discovery consists not in seeking new landscapes, but in having new eyes.
Right. It's not about changing what's out there. It's about changing how we see it.
And we were talking about impermanence earlier, and I'm curious how that plays into all of this.
Well, impermanence reminds us that change is always happening whether we see it or not.
So even if we don't get those instant results, things are still shifting behind the scenes.
Exactly.
Okay, that's kind of reassuring, actually.
And it also encourages us to let go of the need to control everything.
Because ultimately we can't control everything, right?
Exactly. And by surrendering to the flow of life, we open ourselves up to all sorts of possibilities that we might have never imagined.
That sounds great in theory, but I think for a lot of us, letting go of control is really hard.
Oh, yeah, for sure. It's definitely a practice.
So how do we balance that surrender with our desire to actually create specific outcomes in our lives?
It's a delicate balance, for sure. And it takes a certain amount of faith.
Faith in what? The universe? Ourselves?
In all of it, really, Buddhism teaches that by letting go of our attachment to specific outcomes, we actually create more space for them to manifest in their highest form.
It's like we're giving the universe permission to surprise us.
Exactly.
and trusting that it knows what we truly need, even if we don't have it all figured out ourselves.
Right? And that surrender can be incredibly liberating because it frees you from all that anxiety and stress of trying to force things to happen.
So it's not about giving up on our dreams, but rather about releasing our grip on how they're supposed to unfold.
Exactly. And it allows you to be more present, more open to new possibilities, and more receptive to guidance from something bigger than yourself.
Okay, so we talked about the positive side of things, but the video also mentions the possibility of facing challenges after doing this ritual, and they even link it to something called purifying karma. Can you explain that a bit?
Sure. So in Buddhist philosophy, karma is basically the law of cause and effect. Every action you take, whether it's mental, verbal, or physical, creates a ripple effect that influences your future experiences.
Oh, wow. So it's like we're constantly creating our own future.
Exactly. And the idea of purifying karma is about acknowledging past actions that might have led to negative consequences, and then taking steps to shift that energy.
So it's not about punishing ourselves for our past mistakes, but rather about learning from them and making amends.
Exactly. And sometimes that means facing those difficult emotions or situations head on.
So if someone's going through some tough times after doing this ritual, it could be a sign that they're working through some past karma.
That's one way to look at it. It's not about punishment. It's more like a natural unfolding of cause and effect.
Okay, that makes sense. And the video actually encourages people to reach out for support during those challenging times.
Right. It mentions connecting with your spiritual community, whether that's a meditation group, a religious organization, or even just a group of like-minded friends.
It's a good reminder that we don't have to go through it alone.
Exactly. We're all interconnected and we can draw strength and wisdom from each other.
That brings us back to the idea of creating that supportive environment both internally and externally. By cultivating a positive mindset surrounding ourselves with positive influences and engaging in practices like gratitude and mindfulness, we're basically creating this fertile ground for our intentions to take root and flourish.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that this is an ongoing process. It's not like you reach some perfect state of being and then you're done.
It's more like a journey of continuous self-cultivation and growth.
Exactly. Buddhism emphasizes that growth and transformation are lifelong journeys.
So it's not about achieving some perfect state of enlightenment or anything like that.
No, it's about embracing the journey
Yeah.
and constantly striving to live in alignment with your values.
And recognizing that we're all works in progress.
What is that?
We've been talking about all this stuff about the ritual and all that. But I'm still kind of hung up on that whole November 11th thing. Like, do you really think it matters if you do the ritual on that specific day? Or is it more about like tapping into the energy that people associate with that date?
That's a really interesting question. And it kind of gets at the heart of how rituals work in general. Like whether or not November 11th actually has some kind of cosmic power, who knows? But what we do know is that humans give certain dates and times a lot of meaning.
Right, like New Year's Eve, it's not really any different from any other day.
Yeah.
But we've all decided it's this time for fresh starts and setting resolutions and all that.
Exactly. And there's this tangible shift in energy, like the whole world is getting ready for a new chapter.
Yeah, it's like a collective reset button.
Right. And so by choosing a date like November 11th, which already has all this mystical significance for a lot of people, this ritual could be tapping into that existing energy current. Like it's amplifying its potential impact.
So it's almost like harnessing the power of a group prayer or intention.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. So it's not so much about the date itself, but more about the energy and intention that we bring to it.
Right. It's like when you choose a location for a ceremony, a place that already has some sacred meaning, like a grove of old trees or a mountain top or something.
Yeah.
It adds this whole other layer to the experience.
Yeah, I get it. So choosing November 11th for this ritual, it's like choosing a location that's already charged with a certain energy.
Exactly. And that energy can make the whole thing feel more potent, more meaningful.
Okay, so even if November 11th isn't really a portal day or whatever, picking that date for the ritual could still make it more powerful symbolically, because it helps us tap into that collective energy of intention setting.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, the effectiveness of any ritual comes down to the individual's belief and intention.
Right, like if you're doing it just for kicks or if you don't really believe in it, you're probably not going to get much out of it.
Yeah, it's like the placebo effect.
Yeah.
If you believe something's going to work, you're more likely to see positive results.
Because our minds are super powerful.
They really are. Our beliefs shape our reality in some pretty amazing ways.
So with something like this ritual, it's important to go into it with an open mind and heart,
Definitely be curious. Be open to the possibility that something might shift.
Trust the process.
Exactly.
Wow, this has been really eye-opening. When we started talking about the saltwater ritual, I never would have thought it would lead us to all these deep conversations about intention and mindfulness and all this stuff.
It's pretty amazing, isn't it? How something so simple can connect us to such profound ideas.
It's like a reminder that transformation doesn't have to be complicated.
Right. Sometimes the most powerful changes come from those quiet moments of intention and connection.
Like a handwritten note dissolving in water.
Exactly.
Yeah.
A silent prayer whispered into the universe.
I love that. So to everyone listening out there, we encourage you to explore this ritual if it calls to you. Approach it with an open mind and heart. See what resonates with you, what feels true and authentic to your own experience. And pay attention to those subtle shifts, those quiet whispers of change. Because ultimately, the most important journey is the one within.
The real transformation happens not in the external world, but in the depths of our own being. It's about cultivating awareness, aligning our actions with our intentions, and trusting the unfolding of our own unique path.
That's a beautiful way to put it. Well, folks, I think that about wraps up our deep dive for today. We've covered a lot of ground, and I hope this has sparked your curiosity and inspired you to explore new possibilities.
It's been a fascinating journey for sure, exploring ancient wisdom, modern practices, the power of intention to shape our reality.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the mysteries of life.